Hello, and welcome back to this last session, which is kind of tinged with happiness and sadness. Happiness because I'm about to introduce an awesome new speaker, and sadness because it's going to be the closing of this track. I would love to welcome to the stage right now a fellow MVP that I know well, Dennie Declercq. Dennie, welcome. How are you doing?
Hi, Stace. I'm doing well. Happy to be here. How are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad, thank you. It's been an interesting 3 days doing this for the first time. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining from Belgium, unfortunately.
Oh, that's just down the road from where I'm. It's a shame. I can't wait till we can do this all back in person, but at least we have this backup to get it done.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try and steal too much of your time. I'm going to let you carry on with this session and we will speak afterwards. Dennie, the floor is yours for the final time for Build Stuff 2021 in this Saturn stage. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my talk, an intro about blazing web accessibility. And there is another twist on that, and that is with the addition of Microsoft Cognitive Services. And I hate the clicking is not working. So I really want to start with an introduction, and starting with an introduction, I also want to do that on an accessible way. And that's really showing you the content, what you can expect of this talk and what you can't expect. And why do I do that? Because accessibility is not only for people with disabilities, or at least not for all people with visible disabilities and disabilities in common. Accessibility and inclusion is for everyone. And just knowing where you're going to spend your time for the 45 minutes is important. Otherwise, you can quit the room, leave the room, or leave soon, because I wouldn't want to take your time if it's not what you need this talk. But if you need it and you want it, you are more than welcome, of course, and I'm happy that I can inspire you. So I'm going to give you the basics of accessibility, pretty basic. I'm going to give some basics about Microsoft Blazor, again, pretty basic, and the basics about cognitive speech, 3 times really basics. And then I'm going to introduce you the future of website accessibility with a kind of a demo. After this, I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide how you can start implementing this from today, one step at a time. So, who I am, I'm Dennie Declercq, and I'm president and developer, and I also call myself often IT coach at Declercq. And Declercq is a nonprofit in Belgium, and we connect the social field, the social sector, with the IT field, and vice versa, because that's inclusive. And we have a big focus on accessibility, but not only on people with disabilities. We want to help everyone. With the link between tech and social, that's really important. I'm very active on Twitter with my Twitter handle @Dennie Declercq, and with my hashtag Dreaming is Believing. And I'm so proud that I'm a Microsoft MVP since 2019. The year we all have a very good life. The last year that we have all a very good life yet. Yeah, it was amazing. Talking about what happens after 2019. I'm not going to talk about missing travels, missing conferences in real life. I'm going to talk about something way worse than this. Even it already works, honestly. It's hard missing to be with you in person. I would be there today, but I caught COVID myself. It's my last day of quarantine. Unfortunately, I'm build service over. The good thing is I'm not that sick. The first day was not so fine, but now I'm great. But let's talk about COVID-19 and inaccessibility that leads into exclusion of people. Not so fun thing. What you see here is just a Belgium website displayed in English because we have way too much languages, so we also add an English one to our websites. First of all, it's not only a shame or a claim to the Belgian government who made that site, it's for every country. a lot of organizations, nearly every, but we need to stand still with some things that we didn't stand still before. This website is quite okay, is inclusive for people with screen readers. It is accessible and inclusive for people with hearing difficulties because, by example, there are no movies on it, so you don't need subtitles. So it's inclusive for those. And then I'm saying I have a problem at the website. Yes, I'm saying it's exclusive, it's inaccessible for a group of people with learning disabilities. And that is a group that I started my journey in tech. I started in tech in 2012 with doing research, not as a researcher, but as a developer. So on the field, how we can make stuff accessible for people with learning disabilities, with cognitive limitation, who cannot read. And that is SQAP. This website is for them. For that people, they can't go to the website themselves to, for example, see what are the current measures. So they are dependent on, for example, a caregiver or a parent. So their information is also always infused with their vision. And that is not what inclusion is. So why are we going to talk today about the combination of Blazor and cognitive services? It's really simple. Why Blazor? I do it in two parts. Why Blazor? Just to be honest, I don't like JavaScript. And I'm not blaming JavaScript. I cannot do that. I just don't have the feeling with it. I'm autistic myself. It's also a disability. And I never had the feeling that I have JavaScript under control, at least not as I have with C#. Is it a bad thing? I'm not saying that. I don't have the feeling with it. And I never had good front ends in the past. It was also my backends. My example, if I had something, it was a mobile app in Xamarin, or it was just like ASP.NET that I rendered everything on the server and not on the client. And that is not, for the last part, is not the best UI experience. Why Microsoft Cognitive Services? Really simple answer, straightforward. Possibilities that weren't possible before to provide accessible solutions. I just call it a true horsepower. And you can do a lot in Microsoft Cognitive Services, more than I want to do today. And my friend Hank Bullman gave already a talk about AI and accessibility earlier, I think the first day of this conference, and I also have a lot of things with that. But we are going to cover speech today. But enough about tech right now. I'm going to introduce you to the basics of accessibility. So you have people with different difficulties. And if they say different difficulties, that is to experience the world or experience websites, IT solutions, as the same as people without disabilities. It can be more difficult or impossible. It depends because each disability is a spectrum. But I want to talk about some specific disabilities today. I want to talk about people with learning disabilities. These are really people having difficulties or being unable to read, having difficulties with understanding, cognition, and with seeing structure. I also want to talk about people with autism spectrum disorder, and then I have the joke. These are the real special ones, just because they are like me, I'm autistic, so I can say that, no one else. They can have difficulties with structure, and often they need some way more confirmation. Then you have people with dyslexia. They have difficulties with reading and also with writing, but I just have reading here. And then it's not a disability, an official disability yet, but yet, I don't say yet, it's not an official disability, but a lot of people with mental health situations can also have a lot of difficulties with structure. Maybe sometimes they just maybe in crises in their life and then need a lot of more confirmation. Oh, yes. You have the well-known accessibility too. And first of all, I really don't want to exclude them. The people with blindness, vision loss, the people with auditory disabilities, the people with motoric restrictions, and much more. There's one reason that I do them on the second slide and not on the first priority slide. The reason is, for that group, there is also a lot of accessibility needed. But for that group, the most of accessible tools are already invented. The most websites, by example, the website I show you about the Belgian government COVID restrictions is already kind of 100% accessible for them, but not for the other categories. That is the only reason that I do a separation, really not to exclude them. I shouldn't dare. And as I said, I started as mobile app developer in Xamarin. And there I really love the power of text-to-speech in mobile apps. Here you have an app that I made, a prototype about feelings, and it could really read aloud. So a person who cannot read, for example, due to digital literacy or due to literacy difficulties, can click on a button and hear what it is. And no, that's not the same of narrator or voiceover. This completely works in another way and is for another group of people. And they are also great. Narrator, read aloud, voiceover is great, honestly. But it's for another purpose. It's to target other use cases, other people with other disabilities. And this is great for people with blindness, with vision loss. And how does it work? So both are working completely on the other side, or the opposite way. Text-to-speech is great for people with a learning disability, so cognitive limitations, and for people with dyslexia. And as I said, they are both working on another way. Narrator, voiceover, read aloud is already text-to-speech baked in, let's call it, into a navigation system for your screen, not a GPS to navigate in the world, but to navigate on your IT screen. It don't have to be mobile, that's the reason I say on your digital screen. And how does it work? That we sequentially, the whole screen, it starts top left until bottom right. Of course, in the parts of the region that this is a tax order, in other parts of the world, for example, it will with bottom right until top left. And nothing in between. As I said, text-to-speech is something difficult. It's called of decoupled, but you can't decouple it yourself. That's crazy. That you can really amplify text to be with a low text-to-speech, to speech, on a control of where you want it, where you need it. And what's the difference? Like example, you have a learning disability, and you are looking with your eyes at this space. Unless you only have text-to-speech, the narrator, I mean the real narrator or voiceover, and you are focused with your eyes to here, and you start reading with everything on the top left until bottom right, you will get even more confused. This is also the reason that these people are also excluded from tools like narrator and voiceover. And this is the same technology the screen readers work where the normal web accessibility should be or is already built great for. Enough about accessibility at the moment. We are going to talk about Blazor because I love Blazor. And I just give you some basic because I have only 45 minutes and I need to do a lot of things, so it will not a deep dive. It will not be a deep dive into Blazor, but you can understand that. What is Blazor? It's Microsoft's progressive web application. I also call it front-end language or client-side language. It just replaces JavaScript if you want this. It has two flavors, Blazor server-side, and this is hosted as a normal .NET or .NET Core web app. So let's call it, it's included into an ASP website. So for that, you need to have a .NET hosting, ASP hosting model, so a Windows hosting model. And then you have Blazor Web Accessibility. And that is the special thing on that is you can really have a really affordable solution if you combine that with Azure Storage - Azure Static Web Apps. Then you really can build a website application. It has to be Blazor WebAssembly for less than a penny, and it works really great. So getting started with Blazor, oh my God, I forgot to update my slide. Of course, you can also use VS 2022 and not only VS 2021, and also VS Code and all the, I think, a lot of other tools that you can build .NET applications with. And you have the choice, you need to make the choice in the beginning, a server-side app or WebAssembly app. Do know you can change this later, but it's not the easiest part. The easiest part is that you know what you need and you start with the right template. But because this is just a template and this menu is just a way of scaffolding, you can revert your choices if you need it, but you need to do more work, like everything at this time in the modern world of developing. And Blazor works with the basic syntax. And honestly, I love the basic syntax. It is combining just plain HTML, and it's also something really important for basic accessibility, that you start with just the right basic HTML tags. It's completely something different than having another kind of language replacing HTML. And you combine it with just C# if you want it. And by example, the @signs refer to C# objects or C# variables. And you can have a code block or you can have page behind. Also, again, choices. The modern days of developing is about having choices. I like the way of having a code block in the same page. But I know developers, Blazor developers will say, oh no, we want the page behind. You have the choice, it works the same. I love it. Some things that I really love, that you can build it as you want it, but it compares all the same. It doesn't have an impact on the end performing solution, only on how you interpret your coding. What's also very important in Blazor is Blazor components. And we're going to use it in this demo. That's the reason I'm talking about that. So here you see just a page, the index hello world with just plain HTML. And then I have my accessible component, and it's not accessible yet. It's just showing what components are. This is the code of the component. So it's also some HTML and some C# mixed. And it renders in one page having both the hello world and the sentence and the code performed in that component. As I said, this is just a syntax. It's not really accessible component, but we're going to upgrade this later today. Okay, enough about Blazor at the moment. Let's talk about the basics of cognitive services. And honestly, I love it that I can switch in the same talks about a lot of topics and then mix them all together, starting in the half of my presentation. Honestly, I love that way of presenting. So what is Microsoft Cognitive Services? That is Microsoft's AI platform. It's Azure. It's pay as you go. It's developer focused, and it has easy or simple API calls. And that's very important. So you can do AI stuff, really complicated AI stuff, without being a math engineer or a math scientist. You just do an API call. It can be REST, it can be SDK style, and you're just coding and you're really doing AI stuff without knowing anything about AI. Honestly, I love it. And there are a lot of services on the Azure. If you look at the cognitive services and AI, there are way too much services to talk about today. We are going to talk about speech. Speech service has text to speech. That's we are going, but as I said, the difference between text to speech and with the load / voiceover. And you can even go further in it and use custom voice, by example. Then you can have a custom voice, for example, to a person that the person with disability knows. For example, you can branch your website with the voice of the boss of the institution or the coordinator or the chief, but not that you have to do that, you can do that. And you even also have neural voice, which just sounds a bit more neutral or way more neutral than the computer voice. It's amazing. So introducing you for you today, the future of web accessibility. It is my insight, I call it futuristic view about web accessibility. And please note, I didn't include Blazor because you can build it with everything. You should be. And in such kind of time span, each website about the world should have that vision on website accessibility, which tool it is built in. But I love to play with Blazor. I give you one warning. You see the danger tiger. It is brand new. It is eye-opening, but it's not finished yet. In the sense, the proof of concept is 100% working, but there are a lot of things to do bringing that in production, like cost management, having a reference who calls the API is just a proof that it's technical, 100% possible. But to build it, we are not there yet, just on the phase of building everything and the business part of it and having the workload of it. So stop talking, start doing. So I'm going to press that one. I'm just running an application for you. So here you see a website. You should see a website, and you are going to the home page. And what you see on the home page that you can reload the website. And please, if you don't hear it, give me a sign. If you hear it, it's okay.
Welcome to a positive lifestyle. Welcome on my website about a positive lifestyle. Too many people have stress that results in burnout, boredom, and depression. I want to give you 3 easy advices for a positive and happy lifestyle. On this site, you find advice on optimism, passion, purpose. Feel free to browse around for inspiration.
I know you are all asking, you are all joking, what's the difference with this with top left until bottom right? You only don't read the menu. Hehe, it's true. But as also Stacy, my host, giving presentations on things that you need to do things one step at a time. That was the first page that I built, and I'm doing evolution on it. And here you see
optimism.
And you can read it paragraph by paragraph. So let's talk about glasses.
An old quote said, "Is your glass half full or half empty?" For optimistic people, their glass is always half full. The opposite of optimism is pessimism. Pessimistic people don't feel lucky, and for them their glass is always half empty.
And then you have passion and purpose. So I really love that.
The more days that you are in this state, the more days that you are really happy, lucky, and healthy.
So just saying that this is also not ready yet, finished. First of all, there will be a project that I will work on next to, in addition to what I do with my customers. For example, you should be able to remove the buttons or hide them so that it's not stigmatizing and always have the buttons from a toggle system. And there need to be some accreditation, by example. Can everybody run the service? Because it doesn't cost a lot, because it's also working serverless. But if you put it on the web, you have no control with it. And then, of course, the bill can increase. So that system, and how do we do that? Do we need to do it on a static website? That is still server side. Do we bridge it in? Do we have a bridge with it with Azure Functions? That's still a research project, honestly. So that was the visible demo of the future of. I saw it was possible. So, and of course, I am not only to show you what's possible. I'm not showing how. Then you shouldn't speak at a tech conference, but you just should speak at a marketing conference, as that's not what I'm doing here today. More of that, if you have my short link with my nonprofit, I don't have a bit.ly, but I brand it myself. So if you go to go.dd/gh-future-i11y, you will come on a repo with all the snippets. It will be snippets because the whole application is not separated with my credentials and so, but you can use it 100%, especially if you're following along with this talk. The first thing that you need to do is make a quality speech service in the Azure portal. I'm not going to doing that. You can see more interesting things than me looking to the portal and already have the services. You have to create a speech service. And in your application, if you are running on server side hosted, you can use it SDK. Otherwise, you need to more factoring. You have to, if you have a WebAssembly website, you need to do everything with Pascal. So you have to write a wrapper for that. Anyway, you also need to have your keys. So you have your keys.cs, and I will show everything on both ways. I will navigate with you to my GitHub repo, and I navigate you on Visual Studio. Where did I put that? So for the keys, it's in the CS from C#, and I have my keys. Of course, I've left them empty because you are not going to do this everything with my keys. And Visual Studio, I don't put it into, I just do it into here, just at main level, and then I have my keys demo is the same, but also without the keys filled in. Here in the solution is running. I'm not open, and then this is my keys filled in. So, and in the portal you have your key and your region. So that you need. As I showed you, you also have your here I show it your in your dependencies packages. Here I have my Microsoft Cognitive Services.speak. If you run server side, otherwise you will need to build a REST wrapper. The next thing that you need to do is having your speech service. The same, you will also need a speech service if you're doing REST way, but then you have to have other code into the service, or you can work with an interface. For example, I see a speech service that you can then have refer to the SDK cell or to the REST style. You can do whatever you want or need in your project, of course. So I am my C#. I'm going to services, and I have my CS speech service.cs. And here, of course, you have code in it. We have the method synthesis to speaker async. And so I have my configuration, I have it for my subscriptions. So it's in my keys, my key one and my region. I make a new synthesizer and I already start using it, a speech synthesizer. And with using that, I'm doing the speak text async. If it's running, I have my success. If it's not running, I show the error lines. By example, it can be that the connection is not there. So if I go to Visual Studio, I have my services and my speech CS service. My synthesis of speak is exactly the same here. Okay, so you have this. What do you need more? You need a JavaScript file. Okay, I was saying it is all Blazor, it's not JavaScript. And then I'm saying you need a JavaScript file. Well, I have a surprise for you. I didn't lie, but it's one file that you can find on the internet. To work it on that way, and you already can copy it completely from my GitHub repo, so you don't need to write a line of it. And it's very small. It's the interop that is a kind of glue between the Blazor and your DOM of your application. And as I said, it's not a lot of code. I'm not kidding. It's with my curly braces on the way that I like to format it. It is 4 rows. Maybe you can also do it in 3 rows or 2 rows. So it's not a lot, but you need that. So not that hard. And that's what code will do. That will make you able to grab elements. If I go to that tab, these are elements. This is a title, a heading. This is a paragraph. If you click this, you need to grab the content of the elements. That's the Java code to grab that element. So here I'm in my Blazor application. I have my scripts, and I have my interop.js. And of course, that is in the dub root folder. Okay, you are nearly there. Then, of course, you have your page code, or you can also do it into components and not really in pages. You can do it nearly everything in Razor you can do in components and in pages, because pages is a specific or a special kind of component. And what you need to do, you need to inject the IDE's runtime. That is to infer with JavaScript, so to get the DOM information, and what's on the next slide in a GitHub repo. So you need to add references to your elements, like your headings, your paragraphs, and even in the future, you can do to a lot more elements, and maybe I also will do that. How do you do it? With the @ref and then your ref name. And here in pseudocode, I have EL, who leads to the element, whatever it is, H1, paragraph, whatever. EL @ref equals ref name, and then your content of your element. In your code block, you also need to have that instance, so you make the variable private element reference name. What you will see here, I already have a built-in component on GitHub. So I'm going to JavaScript. No, I'm going back. And it's a Razor thing. So in the folder Razor, I have my DDA access 11y paragraph. So here I injected the IDS runtime, and I have my element references. So here you see in this paragraph, you have ref equals p, and I have my private element reference p. If I go to Visual Studio, you have here the same into my DD accessibility paragraph, but also at the index is a way you are not working with that yet. Here I have my H1 with the reference, then it is the welcome head, and I have my P. I only have one P here, my welcome paragraph reference. Then I need 2 element references, so for each element. And if I go to, for example, passion, you have a lot more element references, because you need to have it for each paragraph. But if I start to refactor it with optimism, I have a code for all the text and paragraphs. So this is just a list of paragraphs. Paragraph is also a class that I made. Really simple with some content. It's a class that I made myself. Then I have a list of that. And here I just have a for each loop who presenting a DD accessibility paragraph for each paragraph and the content. And then here I have the DD accessibility paragraph that is here. What does it do? It is just showing the paragraph here the same with my P and my add content. Unlike pages like passion. Yeah, so you see how it works. Going back to my slides, you also need the getLoad method, and I combine it with the next slide just in sake of time. You also need event handlers. So going to my GitHub, it's in the Razor file, it's the same file. So I have here the code getLoad. That code grabs my speech method. So in my speech service, so it's referenced to my speech service here. And you have the getLoad or the read paragraph. So it just is an async one who calls the right paragraph. And it's important to decouple if you want to have multiple paragraphs in one. Or if you want to experiment and have multiple paragraphs, you don't want to put the getLoad code on each event handler. You just want to pass the content. So if I look to my Visual Studio, I starting with index. So here I have my welcome paragraph and my welcome head. I have my button. So my button on click is getLoad. And here I show you one Aria tag today. It will be one Aria tag. And Aria, as well known, is good for the normal or the basic website accessibility things are there. And it's really used a lot to control screen readers. So I hide the button read aloud. Why do I doing this? Aria is used a lot for people with screen readers. They don't want to have their screen readers so people are blind. And then infer also with buttons reading the whole screen, then you will really drive them crazy and really are inaccessible. So this button should be hidden for people who are not just using the screen. Otherwise, it will be a very big thing. And then, so I have my read aloud. Here I get the info, so I get element. And so I read aloud here. If I go to, for example, pages like Passion, so where it is decoupled, I have my paragraphs. So, and here you see the need of decoupling this. For each paragraph, I have another on-click read head, read paragraph 1, read paragraph 2. So in the paragraph, I just read aloud and I pass to which paragraph that I want to read aloud. And if there's nothing, if the result is just success, I just do an empty screen, then you don't show anything. If there's an error, you will show it. And in my read aloud, so I have my element reference. I get the text from the from the DOM, and I read it aloud, and my element reference is coming from that method. If you look at the modern, so the page with it's the same. The page with of course with the DD accessibility paragraph, the DD accessibility paragraph does everything for you, so you don't have to carry that into your page. Like example in the page optimism, you don't have to have read aloud code. I only have it here for my heading because I want my heading to be read aloud. That's here the heading. So I want to walk over the whole demo solution again, but I already met the demo this time. So you see all the contents. So I have my speech service, having the info from the keys. And then I have my Blazor on the index, just calling everything in one call block and passing to the elements, or using different components like the DD accessibility paragraph. And that can be, but don't have to be, built via like an optimism via a service. And that service, of course, can also be an external Azure service or REST call. This don't have to be in the page. So you really can go into even really accessible content builders for everyone. I'm not coming on the name. Yeah, how do you call it? Just whole buildable websites. You don't have to code CMS, content management systems. You can do it in that way if you build it one yourself. And here the website for the last time. So
purpose. You can find your purpose when you can combine your passion with your higher goal in life. An example, a passionate developer building for people with disabilities, a cook cooking for refugees.
So that was the demo. I hope you love that. I hope you see what's possible, pure technical. I also hope what you see is not in production yet everywhere, but you can hope for a better future, or you can create a better future. The choice is up to us, honestly. But be aware of the basic accessibility. A great use of alt text, the correct use of headings, correct use of color contrast, Aria, especially Aria hidden, because it's not that we gonna build solutions to include a whole new type of people with disabilities, that we can exclude the other groups of disabilities, but that shouldn't be okay. Wrap up, I talked about accessibility, I talked about Blazor, I talked about Microsoft Cognitive Services, I introduced you to the what's possible with combining both to have a future of accessible websites. And I gave you a step-by-step guide to implement, and you also can get the resources because it's still here, the link to my repo and my bit.ly. Thank you for listening to this talk. Thank you for building me the opportunity, Joseph, to present these ideas to you. Thank you for my audience when being in the room or watching virtual. You can also contact me, and I do have some time, I guess, from questions that I'm going to try to answer.
That was superb. Thank you so much. That's such a cool demo. Being able to see everything working. Dreaming is definitely believing. That was, I've already opened up the repo on my machine. I am going to be looking at that one and seeing what I can introduce there. We do have a question in the chat. It's from Lucas. How does this cope with different languages? So the question is, can you get it to read Lithuanian?
Yeah, a lot of languages. And there's an official, so it's all the languages who are official in the Microsoft Cognitive Services supported languages. Even Dutch is in it. I'm quite sure Lithuanian is it. I think Hank showed a demo about it 2 days before, just about the cognitive speech. We have a lot of languages. The only reason I did it in English because I'm speaking at a global audience and I don't speak Lithuanian, so I should do it in Dutch, and then you all, it's my native language and you should understand it. But so all the supported languages in Microsoft Cognitive Services, and it's easy to choose the language that you need. I think in the code, I still have it here. There is code that you need to specify it here on my speech service, I guess. I have to add it. I have my config. So speech config. Yeah, you can add a language. Maybe you don't have to do it if it's a standard value English, but it's definitely possible. But I already did some tests with it in Dutch. I think here you can add a language if you go here to a synthesizer. Yeah, but I'm not doing it here, but you can have. So and it says all the supported languages of cognitive services, and it's a still ongoing list with more and more supported languages.
Awesome. I say, the thing that I really love about this, something that you said about the start, you had your list of different people and why text can be difficult on the page. And I've done a little bit of traveling in the last couple of months. And one of the places I went to was Scotland to speak at a conference there. Now, I have issues reading big blocks of text. I cannot read big blocks of text. I get lost. I do also suffer from anxiety and depressive mood syndrome. And exactly what you said in your slides, I find it really hard to actually get what a big piece of text is trying to tell me. And I need to know that I'm doing it right. Otherwise, my anxiety and my stress just skyrocket. And it is just not fun. And none of these websites are well designed for people in that situation.
I understand. It's the same of the COVID-19 restriction, for example, in Belgium. Even for me, as a person on the autism spectrum, or being autistic, if I want to call myself that way, so I have also anxiety, especially, for example, if I can misinterpret the rules, the restrictions, maybe I can be punished, maybe I just need more confirmation. And I don't have to be with it alone, honestly, but it's also just a way of having a clear language usage. How many websites are using too much jargon, even public websites like government? I say, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's there's one in England. I've forgotten the exact name, but it's something like the Campaign for Simple English or something like that, Clear English, to get rid of all of this wonderful jargon and the amazing phrases that people use, and actually just use language which is simple to understand in the setting that's there.
I have good and bad news about this. The good news is you have it also, I think you have it in each language, and you even have it in Dutch. So the good thing is it's there. They also have a name for having a name like easy language. But as I said, I have good and bad news about that. The good thing is the specifications and the language rules or best practices are there. The bad news is the less of people using it because these things are there already for years,
Yeah.
but it's not used enough.
Yeah, absolutely. But something like this on that site would have helped me, because if I can read whilst I'm listening to it, that it just helps it kind of click along and get into the head. I thought it was just superb.
Thank you.
Oh, I don't see any more questions in the chat, so I'm going to say thank you so much for your time, and thanks for giving that awesome presentation.